The Border Force is investigating after 13 suspected illegal immigrants were discovered in the back of a lorry at the Dartford River crossing. One of them has been taken to Darrenth Valley Hospital, but their condition isn't life-threatening. Kent Police say the force was called to a report of the discovery at about 11:30 yesterday morning. People on the motorway saw the suspected immigrants getting out of the back of the lorry near the crossing. Peter Norris is from the PCS Union, who represent Border Force staff at the Channel ports, and joins us now. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning, Maggie.
Are your staff finding more and more stowaways on lorries?
Yes, I'm afraid it's a pretty relentless tide at the moment. As we know from news items that you've covered in the past, there are camps in northern France, and it seems as though there is a relentless tide of human misery, I'm afraid, coming our way.
What sort of pressures on your staff then?
Well, I think it's true to say that we're pretty battered and bruised after this sort of summer period. It's obviously normally a very busy period for the Border Force anyway, and for my members, with legitimate passport holders going backwards and forwards on holidays, people trying to come across, as you covered a few weeks ago, to our unattended shores, and also obviously these clandestine people being smuggled in goods, whether it's lorries, coaches or containers. And our members, I have to say, are very, very busy at the moment and just about holding the line. And
so what more do you think that you would need in order to prevent these kind of people coming in and indeed being able to stop these vehicles? Well,
I think it's probably inevitable that we will never, ever stop 100%. But obviously what we want to aim to do is to be as efficient and effective as we can. And obviously, unfortunately, and this is something that the politicians don't like to hear, it needs bodies on the ground as much as anything else. And, our major concern is, whilst we are very correctly deflecting resources to try to stop people being smuggled in this way, it's putting massive pressure on all the other priorities that our members have in terms of stopping drugs and illegal alcohol and tobacco, guns, ammunitions, pornography and the like. So we are under great strain, and I'm afraid ultimately the politicians, if they can't resolve this problem, are going to have to accept that almost certainly we need more staff at the border to contain the existing problems.
OK, well, let's bring in Mark Reckless, the MP for Rochester and Strood, also a member of the Home Affairs Select Committee. Mark, we'll talk about the particular problem, the incident yesterday, in just a few moments. But first of all, I suppose let's get your reaction to that. The Border Force need more bodies on the ground. Can the government provide that?
I think Peter makes a strong case. It has become clear to me that we are seeing an upsurge in illegal and attempted illegal immigration, and I think part of the response to that has to be beefing up our border security, including, as he says, boots on the ground, who are hard-working, and frankly, I'd like to say thank you to them, our border staff, including from his union, who are working incredibly hard in very difficult situations to try and stop this tide of attempted illegal entry into our country, and I think we should support them.
So does that mean that there's going to be more border staff? Are you going to be giving more money then so that they can recruit more people?
I would like us to look at that. The Border Force, along with most of the public sector, has had to make very significant cuts, and I think there were opportunities for improvements in efficiency and reorientating some of the work they did, and in particular looking for the staff to work more flexibly and move from one area to the other. And I think quite a lot of that has happened, and I don't think cuts can just continue in this area. I see the border protection, and particularly here in Kent, trying to deal with these flows of people and prevent as many coming in. I see that as absolutely key, and I think that if more resources are needed for that area to secure our border, then I would argue strongly through the Home Affairs Select Committee and my dealings with ministers that we should make those resources available.
But Peter, are you happy with that? That's an MP and certainly a voice that will be heard, hopefully, in the government, saying that there will hopefully be more coming your way.
Well, it's a refreshing change for us to hear, and I'm very grateful for Mark Reckless for making that statement in public. It certainly is against the tide of what we've had for the last 4 years. It's been austerity, and as a union, we're not going to say that there aren't other ways of making improvements. Certainly new technology, intelligence gathering and so on all have a part to play. But ultimately, if we don't have enough staff available to react to the ever-changing threat, and I mean, we've seen this over the last few weeks, have we not, that that the people smugglers themselves have started to change tack. We've had people being smuggled in, through Tilbury in containers. We've had people brought in modes of transport that would never, ever have been attempted before. Now, I think that's an indication, on the one hand, of our success in finding clandestines through other modes of transport, but it's also an indication that the threat will spread, and it will, and unless we've got enough staff to be in the places where that threat occurs, unfortunately, we will be losing this war.
Mark Reckless, back to you now. I suppose it does feel a bit like, this is the third major discovery in just over a week. 13 illegal immigrants found in the back of a lorry yesterday. Are we losing the fight against illegal immigration?
I think that fight is a continual fight, and when we succeed and we sort of batten down the hatches and protect sort of one area, then the people smugglers and those that they, often desperate people, they prey on, they look somewhere else. And the job of government is to keep one step ahead of that. And if we find that we're not able to intercept to the degree we need to put people off taking these often terrible risks for themselves, then we have to ensure that we have, whether it's the new technology, the better ways of working, but also, frankly, if necessary, the resources to keep our country safe and to protect our borders and to work with people like Peter and hard-working officers at our border to control it.
But isn't it just really hard? Because ultimately you've got people from all over different parts of the world, individual people who are deciding, I want to live in the UK for one reason or another. And at the moment, what we're hearing from charities is that it is directly correlated to all the instability that's happening in the Middle East, in countries like Syria, in Iraq, in countries in Africa as well, Nigeria. All this instability is creating more and more people coming through Europe and wanting to get to the UK. Isn't it really hard for a government like the UK government to simply try and change people's minds and say to them, don't come here, simply because we don't want you?
Yes, it is hard, and what we're seeing is only part of it. I think yesterday I was seeing reports of around 170 Libyans probably being drowned in the Mediterranean trying to get to Italy, and it is a terrible situation. The differences between the poverty and violence in areas on the edge of Europe and the largely more prosperous society that we have is very, very stark. And if people come through to the UK, what we have to see is they're almost entirely passing through safe third countries on the way and choosing not to claim asylum or try and find work perhaps illegally in those countries, but are coming over to the UK, and that's why we're taking steps, whether it's through insisting that landlords check whether the immigration status of tenants, or whether we're making it more difficult to use the NHS for illegal immigrants. And the government said to make it a hostile environment for illegal immigration, and there was some sort of criticism of that. But I think that is right, and unless we do that, if we allow the UK to be more attractive than other countries and to deal less with illegal immigration and not to find people and not then to deport them, then we'll make the UK even more attractive. And that's why the government has to work with everyone involved to intercept people, and if they do get through to this country, to make sure that they're sent back to their own country rather than allowed in the main, unless there's serious persecution and asylum, they shouldn't be allowed to remain here.
OK, let me just ask you quickly before you go, Mark. The Sangatte-style camp that the Calais mayor is calling for in Calais, do you think that's going to make the situation worse or better?
I think it would make the situation worse if that were to go ahead. We saw that before, and it would make it worse by attracting more people to Calais.
But they'd be in a safer environment, wouldn't they? Because at the moment we've seen pictures of them in really bad conditions, living in very bad sort of, put-me-up places that they're not really being looked after, and they're in a very bad way there. So surely somewhere that's a bit more stable is better for these people to be staying.
No, I don't agree, because I think that then is a jump-off point for people and will support them in making more repeated attempts to get across the channel. And if the conditions are such that it's easier to do that and they can be supported for longer periods in doing that, then it will attract more and more people to make the journey. So I'd call very strongly for the authorities in Calais not to do that.
Okay.
It will just lead to a problem of them having many more thousands of people trying to cross.
All right, Mark Reckless, thank you, the MP for Rochester and Strood and member of the Home Affairs Select Committee. Before that, you also heard Peter Norris from the PCS Union, who represents border force staff at the Channel ports.